The hook, a broken world. The city was silent, broken like an old memory. Skyscrapers leaned against each other as if they were tired of standing. Smoke drifted through the streets, black against a red sky. Once, millions of people had lived here, laughing, working, dreaming. Now only shadows moved. Ruins, echoes, and hunters. Commander Elias walked through the wreckage with careful steps. His boots crunched on glass, his rifle hanging ready in his hands. Behind him, his squad followed, their eyes sharp but their hearts heavy. Every corner could hide death. Every building could collapse without warning. The war had stolen almost everything from them. But Elias still moved forward, his gaze steady. "Commander, the signal is stronger this way," said Mara, the team's engineer. She held a scanner that beeped in steady pulses. Somewhere beneath the ground, something powerful was waking up. Something not human. The aliens had ruled the skies for years. But now, for the first time, humanity had found a secret of their own. The squad pushed deeper into the ruins. They moved past broken cars and fallen statues, past streets where silence was thicker than air. At last, they found the entrance, an old subway tunnel buried under steel and stone. Elias gave the signal, and the team descended into darkness. The deeper they went, the colder the air grew. The walls hummed, faint but alive. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the cracked tiles. It did not feel like human design. It felt older, sharper, as if the earth itself had been carved by alien hands. "Careful," Elias whispered, his voice low but firm. They stepped into a wide chamber deep under the city. The scanner screamed with energy, its lights flashing red. And in the center of the chamber stood a figure, a woman. She was not chained, not bound. She simply stood in silence, her eyes closed, her body glowing faintly with silver light. Her long hair floated around her as if the air itself bent to her will. Every soldier froze, weapons rising in instinct. But Elias raised his hand, stopping them. The woman opened her eyes. They were bright, burning like stars. And when she spoke, her voice was soft but filled with warning. "You should not have come here," she said. Her words echoed, not only in the chamber, but in their minds. One of the soldiers cursed under his breath, fear slipping into his tone. "Is she one of them?" he whispered. Elias did not answer. He could not look away from her. The woman took a slow step forward. Her glow grew brighter, spreading across the walls like fire. "You won't survive my final form," she whispered. Her voice shook the air like thunder hiding behind a storm. The soldiers tensed, fingers ready to fire. But Elias lowered his weapon. He saw not a monster, not an enemy, but a warning wrapped in flesh. "Who are you?" Elias asked, his tone calm. The woman tilted her head, studying him. "I was made to end this world," she said. Her words were heavy, and the chamber seemed to breathe with her. "Made by hands that do not belong to your kind." Mara's scanner cracked and sparked, unable to hold the pressure. The team staggered as energy filled the air like a rising wave. But Elias stood firm, his eyes locked on hers. There was fear in his men, but in him there was only silence. Silence and something else. Curiosity, maybe, or a dangerous kind of hope. The woman looked at him, her eyes softening for a moment. "You should run," she whispered. "If I lose control, nothing here will live, not even you." The soldiers looked at Elias, waiting for his command. But the commander did not turn away. Instead, he took a step closer, closer to the storm. And though the ground trembled under her power, though the chamber groaned like it might collapse, Elias only said one thing: "Then I won't run." His words broke the silence like fire in dry wood. The woman's eyes widened, her glow flickering. For the first time, she seemed unsure. The soldiers behind him whispered in fear. But Elias did not move his weapon. He only met her burning gaze with his own steady calm. The air grew colder, darker. Something shifted in the shadows of the chamber. The ruins above seemed to groan as if the city itself was listening. And then, far away, a roar shook the earth. Not hers, not human, but something else, something hunting her. The woman's voice turned sharp, urgent. "They found me," she said. Her glow flared, filling the chamber with blinding silver light. "Now, they'll find you too." And with those words, the ground above them split open. The ruins of the city screamed as the hunters came, and humanity's last hope began with fear, fire, and a woman who was never meant to be free. The encounter, the woman named Lyra. The chamber still burned with silver light. Dust fell from the broken ceiling. Stone cracked under the weight of power. Elias shielded his eyes for a moment, then looked again. The woman was still there, glowing, unshaken. But now she was not silent. She was breathing hard, like someone carrying the weight of two worlds. The soldiers whispered among themselves, fear thick in their voices. "Commander, she's not human," one hissed. "She'll kill us all if she loses control," said another. Their hands shook around their rifles, torn between orders and instinct. But Elias raised his arm and kept them from firing. His voice steady. "Hold your fire. She hasn't attacked us." The woman's gaze flicked toward him. Her eyes were sharp, glowing but sorrowful. She said softly. "I should destroy you before they force me to." Her words froze the squad in place. But Elias stepped closer instead of retreating. "Who are you?" he asked. Her lips trembled, as if the name was hard to speak. "Lyra," she said at last, her voice carrying both pride and pain. "I was created to fight, to be a weapon against my will." Her hands curled into fists, light sparking from her skin. Half human, half machine, and touched by alien blood. The squad shifted uneasily. One soldier spat on the floor. "Abomination," he muttered. Lyra's eyes flared bright, but Elias spoke before the tension broke. "You saved us from them," Elias said, "or at least you didn't let them find us first." Lyra tilted her head, confusion softening her anger. "Why would you believe that?" she asked. "Because if you wanted us dead," Elias said quietly, "we would already be dead." Silence filled the chamber. The soldiers looked at their commander in disbelief. How could he speak so calmly to something born of nightmare? But Elias' calm gaze never wavered. Lyra turned away, her light dimming. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They made me to carry death, not life. If I lose control, if my form awakens fully, this planet will burn." Her voice cracked on a last word, and for a moment she looked less like a monster and more like a prisoner begging for freedom. Mara, still clutching her broken scanner, whispered to Elias, "Commander, if what she says is true, she's dangerous to everyone, even us. We should leave before it's too late." But Elias shook his head, his eyes locked on Lyra. "No," he said, "if the aliens made her, then she's their weapon, not ours. But maybe she doesn't want to be their weapon anymore." Lyra's eyes widened, silver tears flickering in their glow. "You trust me? After what I am?" Elias took another step forward. "Not because of what you are," he said, "but because of what I see when I look at you. You're fighting yourself more than you'd ever fight us." For the first time, Lyra's glow faded until only her eyes burned faintly. She looked almost human again, fragile but fierce. The soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, uncertain but swayed by their commander's calm. But before peace could settle, the ground shook. A deep, mechanical growl rolled through the ruins. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The hunters had arrived. Lyra's body tensed, silver light returning, sharper this time. "They're here for me," she said. Her tone was no longer sorrowful. It was edged with fury. "I cannot let them take me back." Her power rippled through the chamber, sparking across the walls. The soldiers stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the blinding light. Elias alone stood his ground. "What happens if they do take you?" he asked. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper, trembling with rage. "Then I will become the end of your people. I will be their blade, their storm, their perfect weapon." She raised her glowing hands. "And there will be no stopping me." The soldiers looked at Elias with panic. "Commander, we can't hold this position. If she's telling the truth, we're standing next to a bomb. But Elias did not turn his head. He spoke only to her. Then don't let them control you. Fight them. Fight what they made you. With us. The chamber lit with fire as alien machines broke through the walls. Tall, armored beasts with eyes like burning glass. They hissed in a language not human, their claws dripping with steel fire. Lyra's glow surged, her power spilling like a storm. The soldiers braced for death. But Elias simply lifted his rifle and said, "Stand with us, Lyra. Prove you're more than what they made you." Lyra looked at him, her face torn between fear and rage. And then she smiled, faint but real. Her voice was soft, but her words carried like thunder. "Then let's see if humanity can survive me." And with that, the chamber erupted into war. Light against darkness, machine against human. And in the center of it all stood Elias and Lyra, the man who dared to trust, and the woman who dared to fight herself. The rising threat. The chamber became a storm of metal and light. Alien machines crawled through the broken walls, their claws digging deep into stone. Their bodies shimmered with black armor, their faces twisted with glowing eyes. The sound of their voices was not words. It was a screech of war, a song of hunger. The soldiers opened fire, their rifles cracking through the dark. Sparks and smoke filled the air, but the machines did not stop. Each step they took shook the ground. Each strike of their claws tore the walls apart. The squad fought hard, but fear gripped them. They knew these hunters had never lost. And then came Lyra. Her body burst with silver light, blinding, burning, alive. She moved faster than the human eye could follow. Her hand cut through steel like fire through paper. A machine collapsed, split in two. Another fell, its glowing eyes fading to black. The soldiers froze in shock. They had never seen power like this, not even in the worst days of the war. Elias kept his rifle steady, firing at the closest enemy. But his eyes were fixed on Lyra, not in fear, not in anger, but in wonder. She was fighting like she had always belonged in battle, like the chamber itself had shaped her for this moment. But her power was wild, too wild. Each strike of her hand sent shockwaves across the walls. The ceiling cracked, dust and stone rained down. Her light did not only kill the machines, it scarred the very earth around them. "Commander," Mara shouted over the chaos. "If she keeps this up, she'll bring the whole place down." Elias clenched his jaw. He knew she was both their salvation and their danger. And still, he did not stop watching her. Lyra spun, silver hair flying as she crushed another machine. But her face was twisted with pain. She was not smiling, not even calm. She was burning alive inside her own strength. And she knew it. When the last machine fell, silence struck like a blade. The chamber glowed faintly from her power. But Lyra was trembling. Her hands shook, her breath ragged. She dropped to one knee, the light fading from her skin. The squad stepped back, weapons still aimed. They had seen her save them, but they had also seen her nearly destroy everything. "She's out of control," one soldier whispered. "She's a bigger threat than the aliens," said another. But Elias silenced them with a sharp look. He walked forward, lowering his rifle, and knelt beside her. Her body shook like a flame about to die. "Lyra," he said, voice low but firm, "you fought for us, not against us." Her glowing eyes flicked to his. Tears slid down her face, shining like liquid silver. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I wasn't fighting for you. I was fighting against myself." Elias stayed still, listening. "I feel them," she said, her voice breaking. "Their commands, their chains, their voices in my mind. Every time I use my power, they tighten their hold. One day, I won't be able to resist. And when that day comes, I will kill everything I touch." The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some whispered about retreat, others about putting her down before it was too late. But Elias ignored them. He looked at her like she was not a weapon, but a person. And for a moment, the storm inside her seemed to calm. "Then fight them," Elias said. "Not alone, not as their weapon, but with us." Lyra shook her head. You don't know what you're asking. If I fall, I will take you with me. Her glow flared weakly, like lightning flickering before a storm. Elias leaned closer, his voice steady. Then I'll fall with you. But at least you won't fall alone. Her breath caught, her eyes wide. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever chosen to stand beside her when the price was death. Before she could answer, the ground shook again. Louder this time, deeper. The hunters had been only the beginning. A shadow spread across the chamber as something vast moved above them. The ceiling groaned, dust raining down like snow. Mara's voice trembled. Commander, that's not just more machines. That's their warlord. Lyra's eyes darkened. Her body trembled with both fury and fear. They're coming to take me back, she said. And if they succeed, you will wish you had killed me here. The squad tensed, their fear heavy. But Elias did not back away. He looked up at the cracking ceiling, then back at Lyra, and for the first time, a smile touched his lips. Then we won't let them succeed. Lyra stared at him, stunned. She had lived her whole life waiting to be chained, to be used. But here was a man who dared to speak as if she had a choice. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. Not power, not light, but hope, fragile yet real. Above them, the ceiling split open. A roar of alien engines filled the air. The warlord's army had arrived, and in the darkness of war, the bond between a human commander and a broken weapon was born. Hidden truth. The ruins above still shook with the echo of engines. But inside the underground chamber, silence stretched like a knife. The squad had barricaded the tunnel doors, their rifles ready. Yet no one spoke. Their eyes kept sliding back to her, the woman who burned with silver light, the woman who had saved them and terrified them at the same time. Lyra sat against the cold wall, her glow dim now, her breathing steady but her face pale. Her silver hair clung to her skin, her eyes staring at the ground. She looked less like a weapon and more like someone haunted by ghosts. Elias stood near her, his rifle slung on his shoulder. The others wanted answers, and so did he, but he didn't demand them. He simply waited, because he knew that forcing truth out of her would only break what little trust had formed. At last, Lyra lifted her gaze. Her voice was low, almost human now. Do you know what they did to me? She asked. No one answered. Even the air seemed to wait. They tore me apart, she said, her words sharp but trembling, piece by piece, until I was no longer myself. They replaced blood with fire, bones with steel. They carved alien code into my mind. Every memory I had was drowned in their voices. Every thought I tried to hold was stolen by them. Her hand shook as she spoke. Silver sparks flickered from her fingertips. They wanted me to forget I was ever human. To forget my name, my mother's face, the sound of laughter, even the feeling of rain. They wanted me to be only one thing, their weapon. The squad shifted uneasily. Some looked away, because what she said sounded less like a story and more like torture written into flesh. Elias stayed still, his eyes fixed on her. What stopped you? He asked quietly. Lyra laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Her voice cracked. Nothing stopped me, Commander. I killed for them. I burned cities I had never seen. I drowned soldiers in fire. I ended millions before I even understood what I was. Their warlord called me his final form. His perfect end. The soldiers flinched at her words. Mara pressed a hand to her mouth, whispering, "She's a mass killer." But Lyra's next words silenced them. And yet, she whispered, her voice breaking into tears. Every time I killed, I felt a piece of myself die, too. Every scream, every broken body, it filled me with chains, but it also filled me with memory. I remembered I was not just a weapon. I was a girl who once wanted to live, and I hated them for trying to take that away. Her tears glowed silver as they slid down her face. I ran, she said. I broke the cages they built for me, and I ran. And I have been running ever since. Hunted by them, hunted by humans. Never trusted, never safe. Because everyone is right to fear me. She looked up at Elias, her eyes raw with pain. And you should fear me too, Commander, because if they catch me again, if they switch the chains back on, I will kill you before I even know your name. The squad stared at Elias, waiting for him to speak, waiting for him to admit she was right, that she was too dangerous, that they should put her down before it was too late. But Elias only crouched before her, his face calm. He did not look at her like a monster. He did not flinch at the weight of her sins. He simply asked one question. Do you want to be their weapon? Lyra's breath caught. Her lips trembled. No, she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost childlike. I want to be free. I want to be more than what they made me. But I don't know if I can. I don't know if there's anything human left in me. Elias nodded slowly. Then you're already more human than the things that made you, he said, because you still care about what you've done. You still want something better. The squad looked at him in shock. Some shook their heads. Others whispered about madness. But Lyra just stared at him, her eyes wide. No one had ever said words like that to her before. No one had ever believed she could be more. The silence was broken by a distant roar above them. The ceiling shook, dust raining down again. The warlord's army was moving closer. Time was running out. Lyra pushed herself to her feet, her glow faint but steady, her voice no longer trembling but sharp with resolve. Then if you mean what you say, Commander, stand with me, because when they come, I will not fight for them. I will fight for you. Elias nodded once, not with fear, but with certainty, and as the chamber shook with the coming storm, a fragile bond of trust stood stronger than steel. The truth had been spoken, and for the first time in her life, Lyra was not alone. The choice. The earth groaned above them. Dust fell like snow from the cracked ceiling. The squad gripped their rifles tighter, their eyes darting between the shadows and Lyra. Everyone felt it, the weight of something vast moving closer, something that did not crawl like the hunters, but commanded them. The alien warlord had arrived. The sound came first, deep, rolling, a roar that seemed to shake the bones of the world. Then light spilled through the cracks, harsh and green, burning like poison. A voice followed, echoing not through the air, but inside their skulls. Lyra, my creation, my blade, return to me. The squad winced, covering their heads as the voice thundered in their minds. One soldier dropped his rifle, screaming as blood leaked from his ears. The warlord's was not words alone. It was chains made of thought, and it reached straight for Lyra, her body tensed, her glow flickering wildly. Her breath came sharp and fast. She clutched her head, eyes wide with pain. No, not again, she whispered, but the voice pressed harder. You belong to me. You were never free. Open yourself. Unleash your final form. Burn them all. The chamber shuddered, silver light crackling off her skin like sparks. The soldiers panicked, shouting over each other. She's losing control. She'll kill us before the warlord even gets here. Commander, give the order. Put her down now. Their rifles rose, barrels aimed at her trembling form. Her glow surged, spilling across the chamber like fire. She fell to her knees, screaming, her power burning the ground, cracking the stone. If it burst, nothing inside the chamber would survive. Elias moved first. He stepped between his soldiers and Lyra, his back to their guns. Stand down, he said, his voice calm but iron strong. Commander, she's turning, one soldier yelled. She's not turning, Elias said, his eyes locked on Lyra. She's fighting. The alien voice thundered again. Do not resist, my weapon. Kill them. Kill the one who stands closest. End him first. Lyra's body trembled, her eyes glowing like stars ready to explode. She lifted her hand toward Elias. The squad gasped. Her palm burned with silver fire. One strike, and he would be ash. But Elias did not move. He did not raise his rifle. He did not even flinch. Instead, he stepped closer until her burning hand was only inches from his chest. And he spoke, calm, steady, almost gentle. If you're going to kill me, Lyra, then kill me as yourself, not as his weapon. Her breath caught, her glow faltering. His eyes softened. I don't fear you. I only fear losing the person you've chosen to be. So if this is the end, then I'll die loving you as you are. The chamber froze. The soldiers stared in disbelief. The alien voice roared with fury. Lyra's glow flared so bright it blinded them all. And then, silence. Her trembling stopped. The fire in her hand flickered, then dimmed. Her knees gave out, and she fell forward. Elias caught her, holding her as the glow faded from her skin. Her breath shuddered, her tears hot against his shoulder. She whispered through broken sobs, I can't kill you. Not you. The alien voice roared in rage. The ground split open as the warlord's form began to descend. A giant of steel and flesh, his body burning with green flame. The squad staggered back in horror. But Elias did not release Lyra. He held her tighter, his voice steady. Then stand with us. Not as their final form, but as our ally. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes wet but fierce. And for the first time, her glow burned not with fear, but with defiance. Yes, she whispered, her voice soft but sharp as a blade. For you, Elias, I will fight. The chamber cracked wider. The warlord's shadow fell upon them, massive, unstoppable. The soldiers raised their weapons in despair. But Lyra rose to her feet, silver light roaring back to life. This time was not wild. This time it was hers. Elias stood beside her, rifle ready. The squad gathered close, fear still heavy but hope flickering. For the first time, they were not looking at Lyra like a monster, but like their only chance. And as the alien warlord's burning eyes pierced the chamber, the choice had been made. Lyra was no longer their weapon. She was their warrior. The final battle. The ground split open like a wound. Green fire poured through the cracks, bathing the chamber in sick light. Stone shattered, walls collapsed, and from the ruin rose a figure that made even hardened soldiers tremble. The alien warlord. He was taller than the chamber. A beast of steel and flesh fused into one. For burning eyes glowed like suns. His body was wrapped in living armor, plates that shifted like scales. Every step he took shook the ground. Every breath filled the air with poison. The squad staggered back, their rifles raised but their hands shaking. Commander, how do we fight that? One whispered. Elias did not answer, because there was no strategy against such a monster. There was only survival, or something greater. The warlord's voice filled the chamber, not through sound but through thought. It pressed into their skulls, heavy and cruel. Lyra, my creation, my perfect storm, come to me. Show them your final form. Burn the humans and kneel. Lyra's body shook, her silver light flickering dangerously. The soldiers panicked, shouting at Elias. She's slipping. She'll turn. But Elias stepped forward, his voice calm, even in the storm. No, she won't. Not this time. Lyra clenched her fists, her teeth grinding. I won't go back to you, she whispered. Her voice was trembling but sharp. You made me, you broke me, but you do not own me. The warlord's laughter rolled like thunder. You cannot deny me. I am in your blood, your bones, your thoughts. You are mine. Silver fire erupted from Lyra's skin. The chamber roared with energy. The soldiers stumbled back as the air cracked. It was happening. Her final form was breaking free. But Elias stepped closer, his voice cutting through the chaos. Lyra, look at me. Her glowing eyes snapped to his. Silver tears ran down her cheeks. I can't stop it, she cried. If I let go, I'll kill you. Elias' voice did not waver. Then don't let go. Don't fight for him. Fight for us. Something changed in her gaze. The fire around her steadied, no longer wild but sharp. She straightened, her glow burning brighter. And for the first time, it was not the warlord's chain. It was her choice. The warlord roared in fury. He raised his massive arm, claws dripping green flame, and brought it down with the force of an earthquake. Elias shouted, Now, Lyra! She leapt, her body a streak of silver light. Her hands cut through the warlord's arm, ripping metal and flesh apart. The chamber shook as the monster screamed. Green fire burst from the wound. But Lyra did not stop. The soldiers opened fire, their rifles blazing. Bullets sparked against the warlord's armor. But even their fear turned to awe as Lyra fought. She moved like lightning, every strike tearing through the giant's defenses, every step echoing with defiance. The warlord swung again, his claws smashing the ground. Stone exploded, throwing soldiers off their feet. Elias rolled, his rifle slipping from his hands. But he stood quickly, shouting orders. "Cover her! Keep his eyes on us!" The squad obeyed, firing into the monster's burning eyes. The warlord staggered, roaring in rage. And in that moment, Lyra struck. She drove her silver fire straight into his chest. The green armor cracked. The ground split wider. But the warlord was not done. He slammed his other hand down. The force shattered the chamber. Walls collapsed, the roof caved in. The squad screamed as rubble crashed around them. Dust filled the air, choking, blinding. Elias pulled Mara to her feet, dragging her from the falling stone. He looked up and saw Lyra pinned under the warlord's claw. Her light flickered, her breath broken. The warlord leaned close, his voice a growl of triumph. "You fought well, little storm, but you belong to me." Elias grabbed a fallen rifle and fired into the warlord's face. The bullets sparked uselessly, but his voice carried louder than any weapon. "She belongs to herself." Lyra's eyes snapped open. Her glow erupted, brighter than before. She screamed, not in pain, but in fury. Silver fire burst from her body, tearing through the warlord's claw. She rose, her light blinding, and for the first time, she embraced her final form. But it was not his. It was hers. The chamber dissolved into storm. Silver light clashed with green fire. The warlord struck with claws and flame. Lyra struck with speed and fury. Every impact shook the ruins like thunder. The squad could only watch, their commander's words echoing in their hearts. This was no weapon. This was their ally. The warlord roared, his armor cracking, his body burning. Lyra drove her hand into his chest, her fire burning through bone and steel. The monster screamed. The chamber shook as his form began to collapse. But victory came with a price. Lyra's light flared so bright it burned the ground itself. The soldiers cried out, shielding their eyes. Elias forced himself to look, even if it blinded him. He would not look away from her. She stood in the center of the storm, her hair floating like silver flame, her eyes glowing with both rage and sorrow. She was the final form, but not the weapon he had feared. She was something greater. The warlord gave one last roar before his body collapsed into fire and ash. The green flame died. The ground stilled. Silence fell. Lyra dropped to her knees, her glow fading. The chamber smelled of smoke and dust. The soldiers stared in awe. None spoke. None moved. Elias walked forward, his steps slow but certain. He knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, her eyes wet, her voice a whisper. "I didn't destroy you." Elias smiled faintly, his voice steady. "No, Lida, you saved us." And for the first time, she believed it. The resolution. The chamber lay in ruins. Dust hung in the air like smoke after a fire. The green flame of the warlord had gone out. Only silence remained, heavy and sharp. The soldiers moved slowly, coughing, their armor cracked, their rifles empty. Some leaned on broken walls, others pulled their wounded to safety, but all of them turned their eyes to the same figure, the woman kneeling in the center, her glow fading, her body trembling. Lyra, her silver light dimmed until only her eyes glowed faintly. She looked less like a weapon now, more like a person who had poured everything out and nearly broken. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way, and she sank back to her knees, her breath shallow, her face pale. Elias stepped through the dust, his boots steady on the broken ground. He ignored the ache in his ribs, the blood on his hands. His gaze never left her. When he reached her, he knelt and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Lyra," he said softly. Her eyes lifted to his, tired but alive. I didn't destroy you, she whispered. Her voice cracked like fragile glass. Her tears shimmered silver against the dirt on her face. Elias gave her a faint smile, steady and certain. No, you didn't. You saved us. For a long moment, there was only silence between them. But in that silence, the squad began to lower their rifles. For the first time, they did not look at Lyra with fear. They looked at her with something new. Respect. Mara stepped forward, limping on one leg. Her voice shook, but her words carried. Commander, she stopped him. If not for her, none of us would be here. Others nodded slowly, reluctant but honest. The fear in their eyes softened into something different. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. Lyra bowed her head, her voice breaking. I was meant to be their weapon, but you gave me a choice. You made me believe I could be more. Her body shook with exhaustion. I don't know if I deserve to live after what I've done. Elias reached and lifted her chin gently. His eyes held no judgment, only truth. You're not what you were made to be, Lyra. You're what you choose to be, and today you chose us. Her tears spilled again, but this time they were not only sorrow. They carried something softer. Hope. The soldiers began gathering, pulling debris aside. The chamber was collapsing slowly, cracks widening in the walls. We need to move, Commander, one said. This place won't hold much longer. Elias nodded and looked back at Lyra. She tried to rise again, her legs trembling. Elias caught her before she could fall. And for a moment, the strongest weapon ever built leaned against a human soldier for support. Step by step, they climbed out of the broken chamber. The city above waited, ruined but open to the fading light of dawn. The red sky was clearing, streaks of pale gold breaking through the smoke. For the first time in years, the horizon looked less like war, and more like mourning. The squad spread out, scanning the streets. But no hunters came. No Indians rode. The warlord's death had silenced them. At least for now. Elias stood with Lyra at the edge of the street. She looked at the sky as if she had never seen it before. The sunlight touched her silver hair, her glowing eyes. And for the first time, she looked almost at peace. What happens now? She asked quietly. Elias followed her gaze, his voice calm. Now we rebuild. Now we fight for more than just survival. Lyra shook her head softly. And me? What happens to me? Elias looked at her, his expression steady. You stay, he said. You fight with us. Not as their final form, but as Lyra. Her lips trembled, her tears shining. No one has ever said my name like that. She whispered. He smiled faintly. Then get used to it. Behind them, the soldiers began to move. Not away from her, but with her. For the first time, she was not an enemy or a prisoner. She was one of them. The city was broken. The war was not over. But something had changed. Something stronger than any weapon. A bond forged not in fear, but in trust. As the dawn spread across the ruins, Lyra stood beside Elias. No longer a weapon, no longer a slave, but a fighter who had chosen her own path. And for humanity, that choice meant hope.